I'm Monica.
And I'm Paola, and today we're gonna go down memory lane.
That's right. It's going to be a little bit different though, because we are going to be talking about teaching. So we both have been in the classroom, are in the classroom, just dealing with them kiddos.
Mm-hmm. And we want to shout out all of the teachers out there working hard, especially through all of the crazy politics going on, especially with, banning different books and telling people what they can and cannot teach in the classroom.
Which, by the way, outside of the classroom, you can go to the library and you can read those books.
Period. So get your library book. Your library card so you can get your library book.
But yeah, ultimately, we are going to be talking about teaching. We're going to be talking about the joys and the trauma that come with it.
Yes.
Because we've taught in different aspects and different classrooms, but also different studios as well, because you were also a music teacher in the sense of a vocal coach.
Right. Yes, I did teach private lessons for 2 years in Plano at the Alliance offices.
Yeah.
And that's where I met my husband, Christian. So definitely blessed and grateful for that opportunity. And then I did 5 years in the classroom for Richardson ISD.
Yeah.
And then this year I started subbing. So, girl, all the stories that you accumulate. I remember going to my first year teacher orientation. So in the world of education, you go through like a week of orientation. Basically, you learn how to navigate your campus. You learn the culture of the district,
the do's and
don'ts. Basically, it's like a refresher of what you learned in college, but it's in specific to your district. So like Garland ISD might do things a little bit different than Richardson ISD. Dallas ISD might do something a little bit different from Frisco ISD.
And they do.
So you kind of have to go into this orientation to kind of learn how to move about in that district.
Yeah.
And so my first year, I was in Richardson, and we had this whole little orientation, and the winner of like the first year teacher award, like the best of the first year teachers, she goes up and she like starts talking about her experience as a first year teacher and whatnot. And her advice was to keep a journal and write down all the crazy things these kids might say. And you know what? Till this day, I kind of regret not having a journal. But at the same time, my journal entries would be like, I'm fucking crying again. How do I reach these kids? Like, part of me is like, yeah, there were a lot of really funny moments. But my first year, y'all, trash. Like, I was the type of teacher that like was anxious all day, every day, because I didn't know how to handle my class. I did not know like what the heck these kids would be doing. So my first graders, y'all. My first year.
And it's crazy because you would think that in an elementary sitting, these kids are going to be a little bit calmer. They're going to have a little bit more sense. No, they're demons. Like straight up. Because ultimately, like we'll get back to your story, but like the only reason I started teaching to begin with after college was because there were no jobs necessarily open for music business. And if I did put my resume out there in the application, they would see music business. They wouldn't see like business. And I did take business courses for the specific reason of, okay, if I get a music job, cool. If I get a business job, cool, I'm covered. But when they see the music on there, they don't take it as seriously. Or at the time, they didn't take it as seriously. So I did sub for about a year in Arlington ISD. I think every ISD, it's hard to kind of read how the students are going to do and what policies are actually going to be followed within the code.
Yep.
So I'm not going to talk smack about the ISD per se. I can only talk about my experience in the school that I went to, and I'm not going to name them either because it's not important.
Yeah.
It's not important. I'm not gonna wreak havoc on them. But those students, oh my goodness. I was teaching a 4th grade class, and I can understand.
Girl, every year that was my least favorite group
right?
of,
It's usually the fourth
because
grade.
it's they're on the line. I realize they're not quite at puberty yet, but they understand all the same things that do occur
Yeah.
during puberty, if you get my drift. So they're pushing the boundaries and trying to find themselves and trying to figure out how far they can take certain things.
Girl, me in fourth grade, never. Think back when you were in fourth grade. Think about it.
Right.
Were we that bad? Like,
No.
were we that knowledgeable about the stuff that these kids are now?
I will say there was this one kid in my third grade class. He was supposed to be, I think, a fifth grader.
Well,
and
that's
I was
why.
a third grade.
Yeah.
And he definitely knew a lot more things than he should have, even as a fifth grader. So I know that there's, those type of situations.
Gray
but
areas.
He wasn't bad either. And he wasn't saying this stuff out loud or like trying to get in trouble. But, it's like one of those things that like he would talk about inappropriate things, and we'd be like, ew, get away from us, we'd like run away, be like, ew. So I know that does happen, but I don't think we were ever in the situation where like I know I've been in situations where things are being thrown, desks are being picked up,
so you
things
too
like that. Yes.
Okay, because that was what happened to me in my fourth grade class. So ultimately went over to the student, and typically whenever I would sub, I'm gonna be real honest with you parents, we just want the kids to get their work done. So if that means we have to kind of like bribe them a little bit with the fact that they can use their phone after all of their stuff is done, I'm not going to sit there and say that I didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So out of protocol, maybe. But at the same time, at the end of the day, if your child got their stuff done, who am I to sit there and say that he couldn't play Angry Birds on his phone?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the thing was, this child didn't do anything, but was on his phone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked him to put the phone away, or I would take it to the desk, and he wouldn't see it until the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't listen to me. Came back around, took the phone away. I said, you'll get this back at the end of the day. I turned, and it's one of those desk chair things that are connected, right? The metal chair with the wooden desk.
Yes,
okay?
Yes.
With the little basket underneath it. I turned my back, not even 2 seconds. I see this desk fly and hit the wall. Not the desk, not the bookshelf, the wall. Mm-hmm. It caused damage, but it could have been me.
Yeah, he could have definitely hit you.
And then the school had a security guard in the hallway already. So it's like
they knew.
Yeah. So finally went to the security guard, got him removed from the class, only for him to come back an hour later, because that's what they do. That's policy. They don't send the kid home. They don't keep him in ISS. They don't keep him with the principal. They just send them back to the classroom. Mm-hmm. And we're supposed to be okay with that.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of teachers complain about. It's like, yes, they need to be in my classroom 100% because they need to be getting the information. However, if they are a detriment to my classroom environment, my safe classroom environment, and is not allowing the other kids to learn because of their disruptive behavior, they should not be back in my classroom. Mm-mm. And that's what a lot of, like you said, policies and districts and principals, they'll take the kid for like an hour or so, talk it out, be like, what's going on, which is what should be happening. We should be having these conversations. However, for them to come right back and then continue to be disruptive, that's where it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
And that's what usually happens. It's like they're going to be mad because you took them outside and you took them out of the classroom. So yeah. I'm sure they're like, well, I'm not going to do nothing now.
Either that or they have like a vendetta the rest of the time.
They try to make your rest of your day a living hell.
Yeah. I think at one point in time I had to get on to him again. And I had to teach these like students 4 days in a row.
Oh.
So I was already assigned.
Did you choose to do the whole week, or?
But this was my first experience.
Oh, so you didn't even know.
I didn't know that you had to stick with it. You couldn't get out of the 4 days, at least at the time.
Whoa, because see, what I'm doing now, I'm subbing for Garland ISD, and basically there's like a website called Frontline, and so you just go in and you like pick what days you want. And I make sure to pick the ones that are close to my house so I don't have to have a really long commute. And also choose the ones that are like only one day, because there's some that do have like, there's one that right now is listed. It's like, okay, Tuesday through Thursday. So I would have to be there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
But I like reject that one. Don't show me that one again, because I'm not trying to be at the same school for 3 days.
Well, after that, no. After that, it was just
Yeah.
one-on-ones.
Yeah.
I couldn't bring myself to go through that again.
Yeah.
The same kid, like I had to get onto him again because he was on the wrong, because now they have computers and tablets and stuff for the kids inside the classroom. You don't have to go to a computer lab like what we did when we were
Right.
growing up.
Right.
He was on the wrong part of the tablet, and I had to tell him, you're on the wrong part of the tablet. And he starts balling his fists up, getting ready. I'm like, you better get ready to figure out what you're gonna do.
Yep.
I'm like,
Nobody's. I'm not the one.
I was like, you better figure it out. I was like, figure it out real quick. And he started unballing. I was like, that's right. It's like, I don't play that. Yeah. I'm not going to hit your kid, but I'm definitely not going to take it either.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like, as adults, we have to remember that we have to maintain control of our own emotions.
Yeah.
And we need to maintain control of our boundaries, whether it's with a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 20-year-old. Our boundaries are the same no matter what. So if I'm talking to you right now like this, like I'm being stern and I'm being like standing my ground because I am the adult here, and you're going to respect me because my priority is for you to be safe and to get home safely.
And me too.
And to keep these other kids safe. And at the end of the day, I can't do my job if I'm not safe.
Right, exactly.
You know, so yeah, we need to maintain that level of consciousness to be able to talk to these kids and like maneuver the situations and the emotions, because a lot of the times it's like they do get physical because they don't know how to express their emotions. And especially you're a new person, he's like, let me see how far I can take it.
Basically, yeah, that's what they do. They like to push buttons. But I think it prepared me for nowadays, where I'm actually in a different type of classroom where it's a one-on-one rather than 35 students per like one teacher. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And that's so real. Like, I've been in situations where, let's say, one of my teaching partners, one of my team members, whether it's the PE coaches or the art teacher or my other music teacher, one of them wasn't there and they had to go into my classroom, and you're having to deal with 2 different classes. And by the end of my 5th year, I could handle that because I knew exactly how to make sure that we keep it moving, no downtime. Like, oh, if I need to be up doing jumping jacks with you, I'm gonna be up doing jumping jacks with you. Let's go ahead and like, make sure that you are getting your energy out the way that you need to. But my first year, having 35 kids, like having that scenario happen my first year, there were fights breaking out in my classroom.
Yep.
And it's not my fault.
You can't do anything about it either.
No, I cannot touch these kids or else I get reported.
Yeah. That's what they tell us. That's what they tell us. We can't touch the kids. We can't break them up. We can't put any type of physical interference in between them. They have to either the cops have to get involved, the security officer has to get involved, whether or not your school has it or not.
Or if you have like a campus culture person that is certified to break these things off, because then what happens is that if you get in the way and you end up picking up a child to like take them out of the situation, then you have to go to a training to certify yourself to be able to pick up a child from harm's way. So there's a lot that rides on these type of situations, that like it puts teachers in really hard spots, because one, they want to make sure that the kid is safe. They want to make sure that the fight is broken up and they don't continue to fight. But then you could be the one in jeopardy. Like your certification, your teaching degree could be in jeopardy because you may have moved the wrong way, or you may have picked up a kid and accidentally grabbed something, like anything could happen. And so it's like, the one thing that my principal used to say is that we as adults needed to make sure that we maintain our posture as adults. And if that meant like, okay, I'm not going to get in the way of this, but I know how to evacuate the rest of the kids.
Yeah.
So then you start being creative and you start being like, okay, like whenever my first year, I wasn't obviously as
Well,
experienced
because you're
or
learning, yeah.
didn't know what the hell to do when that happened. So yes, I went in between and broke it up, and had to go to this training, had to get the certification, and by the end of it, it's like, okay, you know what? At this point, I already went through all of it. Yes, I could still pick up a kid and do what I needed to do, but it's not worth all of that. So I started focusing on the kids who were doing the good things. And so that's what I would tell my kids. It's like, you want my attention, you're going to do what you're supposed to do. If you want to go over there and run around, go ahead and run around, do what you need to do, but don't disrupt my class. Because I'm going to keep teaching what we're doing. And just know that because you're taking that time right there, you're probably not going to have fun when we do this other thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to ask you to sit down and reflect on what you just did.
Basically.
So it's like, you have to make sure you set your boundaries, you set your rules. And the one thing that I always say is mean what you say and say what you mean. And that's something that I did not grasp my first year. And I think that a lot of the issues that came around was because I would be changing up my tactics every like week or so because things weren't changing.
Yeah.
Like my first graders, going back to that, and like you had a traumatic experience, I had a traumatic experience as well, multiple, but this one in particular definitely impacted me the most because of the response I got from my administration. So basically, this first grade class, every time they would come in, I would be so anxious. Like it was right after my lunchtime. I would feel so anxious. Like I was literally on my knees praying every single day that nothing bad happened, because something bad always happened.
Yeah.
And it got so bad that at one point, one of the little kids brought scissors from their classroom into my music classroom and started chasing this other kid that they had beef outside of my classroom. And he started chasing him, being like, I'm gonna kill you. So of course I'm gonna report it. I'm gonna confiscate the
Freaking Chucky
scissors.
going into the class.
Literally, that's what it felt like. And of course, I can't go over there. He's running around with scissors, and I'm like, you know what? I have to evacuate the rest of the class. So I had the rest of the class sit in the cafeteria because that's where my classroom was. And they're over here still like chasing each other, and I'm trying to take the scissors away. And obviously, a very dangerous situation. So yes, I reported it to my assistant principal, because that was the person who was like the lead on that whole grade level and the person who handled those type of calls. So I reported, and I the following week get pulled into one of the PE coaches' offices and get asked, what are you doing to make them act this way?
Girl.
Yes. So, of course, that impacted me the most because, one, I was not getting the support that I needed. Obviously, I was putting in every single time something bad happened, I was freaking reporting it.
Yeah.
And so she got upset, and she got like, instead of helping me and being like, how can I help you? Let me go into your classroom and observe. Let me go ahead and like give you some pointers. No. What are you doing to make them act this way? And I literally had to look at her and say, what you're telling me to do, like literally the VBT.
Yeah.
I can stand there and say, your voice level is 0, body is sitting crisscross, and they're running circles around me. So it's like, I literally have no idea what else to do. And so I know I'm not the only person who has experienced something like that.
Especially nowadays too. Especially nowadays in the classroom. So
yeah, so I know that I'm not the only one, and if you've experienced something like that, just know you're not the only one, and you do have rights, and you do have a voice that you can use, and you should advocate for yourself as teachers, as any employee to any employer. Like, if you get blamed for things that are out of your control, that is not what your boss should be doing.
Mm-mm.
And that is, for me, I didn't know that that was something that she couldn't couldn't do. It was out of like protocol. First of all, she put me in an office that was the PE coach's office, not her own office. So first of all, you're cornering me in a space that isn't even yours.
Yeah.
And then
When you have your own space.
when you have your own space, and we could have this meeting and make it official, and we could actually make it productive, you're blaming me.
Mm-mm.
And that, to me, like, I honestly like lost all respect for this principal.
Well, yeah.
I lost all trust in this principal. And as my first year, like, I didn't know how to advocate for myself either. And I didn't know that I could stand up for myself, and I could take that to HR, and I could have made a case out of it.
Yeah.
Because that's not okay.
But I think at the time when you start, when you are in it, it's really hard to see like, oh, well, I could have done this and I could have done that, or I could do this and I could do that. Because I think at the time you're starting off, you just want to make the first, like the good first impression.
Right. And you want to be, good with everybody so that everybody leaves you alone and nobody, be talking smack. But at the end of the day,
you gotta do what's best for you.
People are going to take advantage where they can. And if you're not open and advocating for yourself, they're going to take it as far as they can.
Yeah. No, I think, as we've said before, once we hit 30, like the stroke at 12 at midnight, the moment that I hit 30 years old is when I started saying, I don't like this. I'm going to tell you how it is. If you don't like what I have to say, bye. And that also dealt with, and I'm a little nicer about it when it comes to business, right? When it comes to business, or when it comes to teaching, or when it comes to clients, because thankfully in this field that I'm in, as far as like teaching vocal lessons and piano lessons, I can have a voice and kind of be like, okay, look, Jimmy over here isn't practicing his chords as much as he needs to. That's not acceptable. We need to be a little bit more on top of it, and tell Jimmy like, hey, like, you need to get on top of it, or I am telling mom.
Right.
So there's a little bit more simplicity when it comes to talking that way. But like I said, the moment that I turned 30, there's a lot of things that I don't put up with anymore. And I think when we started off teaching, we were early 20s, just getting out of college, just trying to make a good impression on life, because ultimately some of that will follow you as you go. But nowadays, nah.
Yeah, nowadays I'm like, oh, I don't like how you speaking to me. I'm gonna say something.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like how things are being moved and things are playing out. I'm gonna say something.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason why we can't move respectfully in a professional environment.
Exactly.
So
what's one good thing that has come out of teaching for you? What's one good experience that you've had?
Oh man, I've had so many good experiences. I still have all of the little drawings and notes and little, like, my girls would make me little bracelets. So I still have the bracelets. I still have the notes, and like on my not so good days, I'll go back and like see, like, whenever I was teaching at first, my name was Miss Garcia, and being like, Miss Garcia, you are marvelous. You're a marvelous music teacher, stuff like that.
Aww.
That's just like, okay, I know I have made an impact. I know that my kids really love this. And this year, or last year, I stepped down from being a teacher, and my students, because our campus got consolidated, got put into different campuses. And one of my old colleagues that taught at a different school has a lot of my kids.
Oh, wow.
And she shouted out my teaching partner, Ashley Shockley, and myself at a district-wide day, which means all of the teachers from all of the district, from different campuses, come together one day, and they work on music things, like all the music teachers from the different campuses come together and we work on music things together. And so she did a shout out saying that our kids knew everything they needed to know and were on grade level with the curriculum that is given to us in Richardson ISD. And so she was basically saying that we as educators followed the curriculum and taught vertically so that our kids knew exactly what was going to come up next and what they should have been knowing.
Yeah.
So that when they went to this new campus, they were literally right on track. She's like, I haven't had to reteach anything.
That's so good.
To your students because they already know these things. And for me as an educator, especially music, I don't necessarily want to teach music so that they become musicians. I want them to learn music so that they can learn how to express themselves and be better humans.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were able to internalize the musical elements that we and concepts that we were teaching them and been able to translate it and take it to another campus.
That's incredible.
That speaks volumes to our work and the impact. So definitely taking that with me, taking all of the hugs, all of the little ones who would hug on my leg. Like
that's the best part, I think. I think it's the fact of like all the efforts paying off in the way that you would want it to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just want them to be okay.
Yeah.
You want them to be okay and have a better understanding of music. And I actually still have this student right now, which has been a really big blessing for me because it could also have been like went separate ways kind of thing.
Right.
I have this student that is amazing. Like, and you know, shout out to her. She can dance. She's been playing piano since she was like 5. She's a singer. She writes her own music. Works on a lot of originals whenever we're in class. And the opportunity of going to Booker T. Washington was placed in front of her for theater because she does theater. And we were talking about it, and we were talking about her audition, and I was like, well, I'm just letting you know, like, that's my school. That's my, you know, I'm an alumni from there. No way. No, that's so cool. Like, you know, this person's from there and this person's from there and this. I'm like, yeah, and so am I. And I was like, but only do it because you have the passion for music. You have the passion for, but that's not, I mean, music's not what she went there for. She ended up getting in for theater, and I believe she's in her junior year right now.
Amazing.
And she's one of those kids that like she worries about straight A's and she worries about getting into like a really good school. I think she was looking at Harvard at one point in time, or like, you know, going to New York, or which university she's going to go to that's Ivy League, or, you know, just to kind of like have big hopes and big dreams. But she also has big hopes and big dreams for her music too. And there was one time she was in the library, I think. And I think I told you this a while back when she texted me. In the library, there's a book in Booker T. Washington that was created around the time that I graduated. I'm the youngest person in the book, but there's people like Nora Jones, Erica Badu. There's a lot of different people that came out of the book. Scott Davison, which is one of our teachers, which is one of the older faculty members, still there.
Yeah, still there.
And she tripped out that was in the book, and she was like, you weren't lying, you were being honest, that's so cool. And like, wow. And you know, like from there she, you know, she saw everything that I was teaching her up until the point that she is now, and her confidence level has grown so much. And so it's so cool to see. Like I said, she's a present student now, which I'm thankful for. But to see a child get built up and to see them have the realization that they can go further with their careers, regardless of it being music or regardless of anything, just being in there, a part of that, a piece of that. It makes you feel like, okay, these are the days that I need to look forward to compared to the days where I'm just like, I don't want to teach.
Right.
Or I
Yeah,
don't
because
want to
we all have
deal.
those days just like y'all don't want to go to work and
Yeah.
we all have those
Everybody in their
days.
fields.
Right.
Everybody.
Everybody. We all have those days. But yeah, that's definitely at the end of my career as a teacher till this point, it ended up not being the kids. Like at first, my problem was being able to manage my classroom and build those relationships with my kids. And of course, the campus that I was on had it's like Title 1. The demographic was lower socioeconomics
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So it was a rough school to work out at, but it was the most rewarding because when you understand childhood development and you understand the signs of people living with trauma, people in survival mode, when you understand all of those concepts and you see it and you witness it in your students and you don't give up on your students and you stick it out, it becomes the most rewarding feeling ever. So I struggled my first year, of course, like I don't deny it, but I'm so happy that I stuck through it because by the end, these kids were calling me mom. They were like, you're like my mom because you always tell me how I'm supposed to do things and you never sugarcoat anything." Like, and I was telling my friends, I was like, at one point, like my favorite students didn't know that they were my favorite students because my standards were always much higher for them.
Yeah.
Because the way I love is like I'm a tell you how to do things and I'm a guide you, but I'm gonna also keep you accountable
Yeah.
and hold you to that standard. And so at one point, a kid did realize that, and they were like, "Miss, you're the only person who really saw me and really cared. You're the only teacher who actually knew how to talk to me."
Yeah.
So it's like those stories and those like moments that it's like, yeah, just showing up literally means so much to these kids. And the fact that like I was able to stick around for as long as I could helped me realize that showing up and just being supportive builds that relationship, builds that trust. And so yeah, by the end, like my job was so easy, so fun. Like I could here's a funny story. So at the end of my career, I basically wouldn't even like tell kids to stop. I wouldn't even like I'd just be like, "Come here. Come here.
The face. The face.
Come
That's all
here."
you need.
And they would come up and I would just be like,
No.
and they're looking at me like, and they're looking at the kids like, "Is she really doing this right now? What is she doing?"
Yeah.
And I wouldn't break character. I'd just be
Mm-hmm.
and trying to make it as fast as I could. And they're like all confused, and I wouldn't say a single word. And then once I could see that they were like, they would start trying to do it as well. And they would be like, they couldn't figure out how to move their nostrils. Once they started copying what I was doing, I'd be like, "All right, stop. It ain't working. You gonna listen to what I'm trying to tell you? You gonna sit down and stop talking? Or am I gonna have to do something else?
Yeah.
Or am I gonna have to do something else?
Yeah.
Or can we move on with class today? Because I can be silly. I can have fun. And guess what? You not following directions ain't gonna ruin my day.
Mm-mm.
You having a bad day is not gonna make me have a bad day. So you can choose. We can be silly. We can have fun. We can try to figure out how to move our nostrils together, or we can have a different conversation."
Yeah.
So I'm like, you get to choose what you want to do. Have fun, sit down, get through this lesson real quick so we can get to the game, or do you want to write about it, or do you want to tell your mom about it? And so then they'd be like, I'm gonna go sit down.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go sit down.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any issues. And it was literally like, they'd be like, "Man, she's crazy. She's literally over here doing this weird crap," and then having a serious ass conversation. And then as soon as they would sit down, I was like, "All right, guys, let's get back to work. Okay, so where were we? Okay, ta, ti, ti. All right, ready? Here you go." And they're like, who is she? Like, you literally have to have different personalities
Yeah.
to like be able to go on about your day, because we do carry a lot of their trauma when we go home. We do carry a lot of like what they're going through, and we want to make sure that, like you said, they're safe and they're doing well. But when we're in the classroom, we're in the classroom. We're here to work. We can have fun. We can do all these things, and it's up to us as the educator, as a teacher, and as an adult, just in the real world. I feel like I have brought a lot of those qualities that I learned in the classroom out into the real world as well, because honestly, I be talking to these adults like I talk to these kids.
Because sometimes that's all that it's a taller toddler, or not a toddler, but it's a taller child that you got to deal with sometimes. And the industry and like regular civilization, like people kind of forget where they come from sometimes, and the way that they were raised, if they were raised. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So I definitely take any opportunity to educate grown-ups or even the little ones. Even now, as a substitute teacher, when a pre-K baby trying to cut up, and I'm like, listen, I'm not the one.
Mm-mm.
You can cry, you can have your moment in the corner, but you can come right back.
See, I think that's where I stopped. I stopped really, like, I don't want to say I don't have compassion for crying, but we talked about this before in a completely different episode. When you start crying and it's for something that I know is bullshit,
it's like, bruh, nah.
Like a wave of like, I don't care comes over.
Yeah.
Like the wave of my last give a fuck is completely like, it comes over and I'm just like, I'll wait. And that's what I do.
Yeah, like, I'll wait. Literally, like, baby, I got time. Yeah, I got time today. So
you're on my like, you're on my schedule. Yeah. You know, you're wasting your time in my classroom, in my situation. I'm like, I'm not over here yelling at you. I'm not over here trying to be mean to you. But if you want to cry, okay. And then I'll tell the parents as to why you're crying.
Yeah. Literally. And I think that that's the biggest point, is to have open communication with the parents, no matter how annoying you feel like you are, no matter like how many times you have to call these parents because of what's going on. They appreciate it. Like, they do. And I know parents out there want to know what their kids are going through, how they're acting, because sometimes they'll act a completely different way out in the real world than they do at home. And I get that, but we have to keep everybody accountable, you know.
I do want to say a message to the parents, though. Understand that whenever we have your student, we're not over here trying to tell them that they're not the best thing out there. Like, obviously, like, we're trying to work with them and mold them into a good person. But if I'm coming to you and I'm telling you what's going on and you're combative with me, that's where the respect level kind of goes away. I get that you love your kid. I get that you have a biased opinion about who they're going to be or how they're supposed to learn. But you also have to remember that when they're in our care, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and so we have to be open with our communication on both ends, you know. And it's like, I've gotten my fair share of parents cussing me out and this and that, but then I stick to it and I'm like, listen, we're on the same team here. You can be mad if you want to. Go ahead and be mad if you want to. But at the end of the day, I spend 8 hours out of my day with your child. So I know what's going on in this classroom.
Yeah.
And I know how best to navigate the situation, because I am qualified to do this job. You know, I have the background.
And if you want to do my job for me, you'll come on in.
Right, exactly. So it's like, a huge shout out to all of the teachers out there, a huge shout out to all the parents who work hand in hand with the teachers, because at the end of the day, the kids are our future. We need to nurture them and pour into them as much kindness, as much history, because that's where things get blurred and lost. And if they know their history, whether it's their culture, whether it's history around the world, which they are getting in the classroom if the teacher is on top of what they're supposed to be doing, and in art classes, in PE classes, in the music classes, theater, dance, they're getting all of that like cultural influence.
Yeah.
So please pour kindness, history, pour the arts into them, pour into their passions, because it's so important as parents to show up and show that they really do support and care. And by dismissing what the teacher is saying, you're showing your child that that person isn't on the team, when in reality they are. So it's like we need to make sure that teachers and parents work hand in hand so that our kids grow up to be amazing citizens and be the full potential person that they can be. So that's my message.
Yeah. Well, we hope that everybody enjoyed this episode. Obviously, we have a lot of different teaching stories. This is probably going to be like a part 1 of them.
Right.
Because, ultimately, as we go along in this journey with y'all, it is cool to share the types of stories that we have. If you're a teacher or if you are dealing with first-time students, reach out to us on our personal pages on Instagram, as well as wittybanter@gmail.com.
We want to hear your stories. Maybe we can do a little part 2 and read out crazy stories or funny stories. I do listen to Teachers Off Duty podcast, and they be making me laugh with like all these crazy stories. So definitely want to put a platform out there for anybody who wants to share their story.
Absolutely.
Email it to us, like Monica said, wittybanter@gmail.com, or DM our Instagram page, wittybanter. We hope to hear from you guys and see you guys on the next one. Bye.